This talk is about the lessons I learned in civic hacking. This year, I traveled across the state, participating in civic hacking, and in this talk, I will discuss the overreaching themes before talking about specific things I learned in Houston and Austin, and then I'll wrap up the talk talking about like event-based civic hacking, which is going to cover the hurricane effort. So, you know my name, but who am I? So, I actually went to Notre Dame to become an environmental scientist, but I won an NCAA championship on the way. I learned Python and R through an environmental engineering lab. After being laid off in oil and gas, I taught myself web development. Currently, I'm an MBA student, but I work part-time as a freelance web developer and a fencing coach while looking for my first-time job in tech, but somehow I always find time for civic hacking. Civic hacking is a modern approach to handling government issues using crowdsourcing with the community. We can use this through the internet, technology, and global networking, which you'll see later in the hurricane events. But for me, civic hacking was actually a vehicle for me to become a better developer. And this is actually verbatim on the website of opengovdata.io, how they define civic hacking. So who are civic hackers? So civic hackers are usually people that have technical knowledge or government domain knowledge. However, through each Code for America, each city has a brigade. So just a local community of civic hackers that allows novices and professionals to collaborate on several projects. Here in Austin, it's Sketch City. I mean, it's actually Open Austin, the t-shirt I'm wearing. But back in Houston, my hometown, it's Sketch City. So why did I involve myself in civic hacking? I actually started doing civic hacking because I'm a sweet and nice, compassionate person. I don't know if you guys could tell that yet. I liked helping people and making a difference in my community. In the past, I've gone to hackathons and pretty much like I coded on hours. I stayed up for like 50 hours and like using caffeine and desperation and fumes to develop an app that no one would see after judging. Some of those apps and ideas would have been a boon to communities if we actually kept on going with them, but they were only implemented for that event. So I decided civic hacking was like a way to actually be more useful to the community and actually use some things in a world-class setting. Like sometimes they make it to production, sometimes they don't. So one of the things I first learned was that civic hacking communities are diverse naturally. Houston, the group we have in Houston is very diverse, very multicultural, and has a blend of students, hobbyists, and professionals. Thanks to that, we have like a great view of solutions and different angles and backgrounds that we can tackle any problem from. More often than not, these apps that we end up working on have a huge effect on the community that we live in, and it's just great. However, there's a caveat for that. I'm here in Austin, and sometimes I go to events in Austin, and let's be honest, I double my demographic when I show up to these events. And this is sad because I'm not from Austin. And it's disappointing, but like Austin had a lot of things going for it, but also while they have things going for it, the forces of gentrification, redlining, gerrymandering have pushed out poor people. And poor people tend to more likely to not be brown and black people. So you don't have that core people in that community. You have someone that's been siloed out. So you don't have that diverse take on things and different experience, which I feel like Austin will benefit from. Open data is great. Let me tell you, how many of you guys have done web scraping and enjoyed it? I want to say, like, using an open API that you could actually use that's really well built, or having an XML file is really great. But scraping a website, I've done it several times. And one time I was scraping a website that was like not allowing me to really get their data out because, it was secret data. And I just had to give up because I decided that orange isn't my color. So I moved on from that. So when we end up coming in together as a community, everyone's able to help and build together, but what is the use if it's only for that community and other communities that have similar problems can't use your problem, can't use your solution? However, there is a problem. I will talk about it with Budget Party. Competitors that are actually looking for your idea, they will come and exploit your idea, and they have capital, they have a business name behind them, and they will go steal your idea, and it's sad because you worked hard. So, Budget Party was an app I got involved in through Austin's Hacks for Change. I wanted to be just on their team, but I ended up on 3 teams because I was a bleeding heart. And more about Budget Party, it is an interactive app to help people understand the budget by augmentating Austin City budget. So pretty much, as I mentioned before, we had it open in our repo, and we had a group from London that is actually like a dev shop, found out about our idea, and they went to the city of Austin, and actually City of Austin paid them for their idea. So now we're people in London are now doing stuff about the Austin city budget, but they really don't care about it, so the app is crap. One of the things I found out is some developers don't like WordPress, because I was at the Hack for Change, and I was trying to decide on a group, and that I wanted to help out with another group because nobody out of the hundreds of developers that showed up wanted to help on WordPress, even though they had WordPress skills. I quickly found out the reason of this was documentation. So the lack of documentation I've seen has break or made open projects. So I don't know if you guys see right now, I have my keys on my neck, even though I'm here presenting. It's because I'm a little OCD about one thing, my keys. It's because I have a way to travel, and one of my worst fears is I'm going to travel to Austin, forget my keys somewhere, and have to walk all the way to Houston. So I had my friend, we were trying to find free parking in Austin, which is pretty much non-existent. So he moved my car around, and I came back to get my keys. So I went to his room. He was in a group. He was in a group of developers, and there was one UX researcher, and they could not communicate. So I found out really quickly, after him spending 10 minutes not finding my keys, it was better to listen to their conversation and help them out. And I helped them out with a 5-minute doodle that I built, and I didn't know that was called a wireframe because I was such in the dev world that I didn't know what I was doing actually had a name. And the fact that I was able to sketch out their plans for their app and what should go where was a sitemap, and I didn't know people were getting paid for this in the UI designer roles and whatnot. I did not know. I just this is what I always do when I freelance. But I went back to Budget Party, and I am the one that squashes bugs. So bugs in the digital sense, and also in reality with cockroaches, unfortunately. But the thing is, there's only one person screaming when you squash a bug in tech world. It's usually the manager at you. So, yeah. But this was a React.js app. I did not have experience with React at this point in time, so it really built up my confidence when I was able to squash one bug, squash another one, and come right after it. It just built my confidence that I could do this. I ended up leaving Austin because it was only a weekend, but I kept on active with the program, so I ended up working remotely. And that was an experience with a team, because usually when I work remotely, it doesn't end up being a team. It's just me and a client, which was a different learning of interpersonal skills. And then we had success. Goodness, we actually won the Mozilla Internet Help Prize, and we got to go to, one person on our team got to go to London and actually show off our wonderful app, so that was great. Now, I went to the Houston Hackathon, and from there, I was working on a project for housing. We had a team of 16 people, which is really big for a hackathon team, and we wanted to build a really robust app, but in reality, we ended up building something that looked more like Frankenstein's wife. It was built for a good cause, but it was bad. So we went in, and after the hackathon, we wanted to keep on working on this project, so we thought we were gonna scrape that crap and start from fresh. And one of the things we thought we should do is we wanted to get people that are actually gonna use the app, AKA the civil people, and pretty much it was gonna be the people that are looking for housing, people that were the city workers, the planners, and their caseworkers, and people leasing out their houses and apartment homes to use this app. We found out very quickly over the months that we spent on it that Civic Hacking does not pay the bills whatsoever. And this was a month project, and we were doing months of work for free. But we were able to nail down people that were interested in getting housed and people that had housing available. But the city workers, we tried to nail them down, but they would bail on us after we got there for 15 minutes waiting for where they were, which is understandable. They're busy people. But it was a repeated process, and we didn't have anything to bribe them with. So we thought finding grant money would help them. Like, if we could pay them for their time and actually show them that we were actually gonna build this app and bring it to fruition, and we had the means to do it. But it's a long process, because you have to go through writing the proposals and then waiting for the committee and then actually getting feedback, and that was a long loop process, which wasn't the greatest, but learned a lot. For my team of 5 people, there was actually a team of 5 women, me included, and 1 guy, and we had a lot of enthusiasm, but we could not bring this to fruition because the city caseworkers were a pretty big deal for this app, and we could not meet with them. But that was okay, because housing, like insurance, is a very hard thing to improve. So, but that was okay, because something else happened. It was Hurricane Harvey happened. And that was a really big deal. I don't know how many people are from Houston. They know what water is. They know how flooding looks like. I did not put any pictures in this slide deck because I didn't want to traumatize anybody. I actually live by the dam, so I experienced some flooding, but I was still able to help out. Our Sketch City Slack actually ballooned to 700 active users. I don't know how many people you have active at one time on your Slack groups, but it was a pretty big deal, because before we only had around 50 or so people, but 700, and we ended up creating about 20 apps. Some of the big ones were Harvey Needs, and then we had one for mucking out people's homes and whatnot. But when I was working with some of the groups, I was just all over the place. I found out easily MacBook Pros are the default for developers. That's me standing with you right now with a MacBook Pro, because I had a PC and I struggled. Setting up development environments are hard. It's a hard process. It's a time-consuming process, and that's mainly because I had an old PC that was out of date. Which, to combat this, I did a lot of pair programming with people. So, and I knew people, so they were very happy to do that with me. But when I went home, after not being able to pair with anyone remotely, I tried to actually add things in blind, and that's pretty hard to do if you're not like a really senior person or could see things on a different level, which I don't have that brilliant mind. So, and I realized it was okay for me to fail, just if I just moved on to something else, so, which I did. It wasn't just only coding. There was a lot of pollution that happened, and my environmental science background was very influential to help out. And then Hurricane Irma happened, and a lot of people actually ended up going to a different Slack just for Irma because we pretty much took over Sketch City Slack, and then we ended up doing the same process again. But this time, we were dry, not wet, ironically. So we just redeployed everything, took out Harvey, put Irma, and we just created a new API for Irma. But the only new thing that really was a big major thing that came out was a chat box. We had some problems in the Irma Slack because not everybody knew each other, but in Houston we had a core team of people that actually knew each other and trusted each other. And that actually came down to data. So people couldn't trust data because they couldn't trust the person, and their data looked sketchy, so they didn't trust them. It was just a vicious cycle. And then Hurricane Maria happened. People were ready to move and repeat for Maria, but they didn't move to a Slack channel. They moved to a WhatsApp group. So that really limited the communication that we had with people. And also, as you guys know, Puerto Rico is still doing very badly. Not as bad as it was, but it still needs a lot of help. They had some hacks to get technology going, but did not happen. But we were still willing to help them. My group ended up having a React Native app to help out, but we contacted FINA, and FINA gave us back the response, and pretty much we could not go on with our app because we didn't have the right standardizations that are industry standards, because we needed to have those, and those certifications cost money that us Civic Hackers could not actually help for. So we couldn't disrupt protocol. They just told us to stop. And pretty much Maria was a problem that was just over our heads, and we could not help, which was really unfortunate. It just took that the government had to help by itself. Like, people, their community couldn't really reach out in that way, which sucked. Sometimes your idea can't be the next successful tech business, which we thought this app would do a lot of good for Puerto Rico and other people, but we just didn't qualify, which was really sad. So these are the lessons I learned from Civic Hacking. I couldn't learn from them from a book, but I learned them throughout this year and all the craziness that's happened, and this is the end. Okay, I see your hand was first.
Yes. So I am the interloper in the room, and I'm not a software engineer. I work for government.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, from my perspective, what can someone like me who works for government facilitate people like you to work together? Like, what do you need from me to move forward with those initiatives?
Well, first, when we have a point, okay, so your question was, what can government officials do to actually interact better with, like, people that work in government could actually do to work better with people that are trying out to help in the community? The number one thing you guys can do is actually meet with us. And when you meet with us, please tell us what your problems are. What what has been done that can't actually like work for you? What do you need us for? What do you need us to automate to make your life easier? What is the best thing? And also share your domain knowledge. So yeah. You had a question.
Oh, it was kind of the same thing. It's interesting you brought up the point that if people don't know a person, they're not going to trust their data.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting then when it came to Maria, for all intents and purposes, the government didn't know you guys' app or you guys' data, so it was a similar type of thing where then they couldn't trust it. So I was going to ask also, what could be done in the future so the government or officials from the government are ready to accept the help that you guys.
So
Can you repeat the question again?
So the question, if I understand it properly, was there was a lot of distrust going on with people working out together, and then there was distrust from us, the community hackers, actually between FEMA and other government officials, and what can we do to rectify that in the future? Yeah.
So it's a similar question.
So when it comes to big entities like that, if we just had a shell corporation that we could have just moved under and like, hey, we built this app, please accept this app, please allow you just vet this app and use your certification in the industry and to move this along. Because the thing about open data is everyone has this data that they have open, but they're not using it in different ways. So like, we actually have the time, you have the data, you have the resources, please just work together and get this done as quickly as possible. Yes.
So I worked for a couple of years at the Code for Denver, the brigade up in Denver, and addressing both of your stuff and stuff you're talking about here. We saw the same kind of problems, where that the Code for America brigades work on problems that they envision, right? So if we come up with, or we'll hear somebody from the government say, we have this one particular problem, but they don't have the time or energy or whatever to really come to meetings and like be a product owner with this and stuff. And so we go, well, that's a really important problem, so we're just gonna guess, right? We're gonna make a whole bunch of assumptions and go build something out. And then you get to the end and you've got an MVP, right? And then now you're ready to take this someplace, and there's nobody there to take it. It's a problem that we saw a lot. So I think one of the things that can help, that I've seen that can help,
Yeah,
is
so
for
what's the question?
the question.
The question for her to answer.
Yeah,
What do you want her to answer?
I was. So were you able to see have you had a similar situation, stuff where you had a difficult time connecting?
The most time, so first of all, this we have a question from someone that was part of a brigade in Denver, and he saw similar problems in his community and wants to know about work.
How have you solved that with trying to connect with government?
How have I been able to solve the problems connecting with government? For the most part, I haven't solved all the problems, but my group has tried to be very, very flexible because we know they have busy schedules. So even though we got burned by like 3 interviews of them not showing up for initial, we just kept on going. Sometimes we even showed up at their office, like to make them so they don't have to travel out. We offered to like, hey, let's do a lunch, and lunch is on us, and talk. But it's been a really hard process. Like, if people are exhausted, they're not gonna talk to you. They might meet with you once, but like, that's the problem we had in the housing project. Pretty much we wanted to create an MVP, but we didn't want to have a minimal viable product that they wouldn't be able to use. So pretty much progress has been slow on that front. So we thought it would be better not to move forward with something that was another Brides of Frankenstein. So, but we wanted something useful. So we're still having like a channel, but we need to find people that are actually better at talking to them. So we were in the process right before Harvey of finding someone that had enough government connections to have a sit down and be our project manager, so to be our connector. But that never came into fruition because Harvey happened. So.